Hello everyone, my name is Maria Carola, I'm the CEO of Swapzone, and today is another episode of our cryptocurrency interview series, and we are joined by Dana from Dash, which is fantastic. And I would probably like for you to make like a brief introduction of what you do, how did you get into cryptocurrency, what you do for Dash, and like all this like little details.
Sure. So I'm currently head of product at Dash Group. So I focus on all of the product management aspects of what we're trying to develop to advance Dash as a payments method. So that includes the core protocol, but it also includes some growth initiatives like the development of Dash platform and the development of the Dashbay Wallet, which tries to provide a user-friendly interface similar to something like Venmo or Square Cash, except with cryptocurrency.
Cool.
So I've been in cryptocurrency off and on for several years. I in earnest began roughly 2018. Was attending a lot of conferences and meetups. Got connected with someone through Dash, and the rest is history.
Okay, that's great. Why did you decide to join Dash in particular? If you were probably in this space, like there's always so many like job opportunities out there. Why was it Dash in particular that interested you?
Yeah. I thought Dash was particularly interesting because of decentralized governance. I thought that they were one of the only projects that was pursuing something to solve that problem, and were obviously one of the pioneers in that regard as well. It's something that I'm still very drawn to, and I think it's very likely that in the future, once we, finish delivering on Dash platform, the Dashbay Wallet, that we would seek to, further develop that governance side of the project. So very interested in all of that stuff.
Oh, this is great. How would you describe Dash generally for all the people out there who are not as familiar? Like, what are the core values of Dash? What are like the main pillars of Dash?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. So am I describing it to a person familiar with cryptocurrency or a person not familiar?
Let's put it like moderately familiar, like heard about BTC a couple times in their life, but like not really sure how it all works. Maybe like this kind of contingent.
Yeah, I'd probably start off by mentioning that it's a fork of Bitcoin. So we have that Bitcoin DNA in our code base, and we have modified it with a hybrid proof of work, proof of stake type of system. So unlike Bitcoin, which is just pure proof of work, Dash also has a proof of service consensus that's going on top of that. So the Masternodes, which are special nodes on the Dash network that stake their capital, they provide extra services for the network, and those extra services provide functionality that goes above and beyond what something like Bitcoin could provide. For example, one of our most exciting, relatively recently released features is chain locks. And chain locks allows us to send transactions that are instantly confirmed, provides an extra layer of security on top of our existing network. And so it's functionality like that I think separates us from a lot of competitors in the space. We have the best of the proof of work world while also providing this extra functionality due to our unique network hierarchy. Does that make sense?
You mentioned the word competitors, and actually I asked it to everybody who uses it because like I'm honestly like personally not sure that there is such thing as competitors in the blockchain space. I haven't figured it out for myself yet. Do you find it more like there are projects that are similar to Dash in some ways and doing something like more or less close, let's put it this way, and there are projects who are completely like distinct from it? Do you find that you're all working on kind of like the same goal to achieve something, or is it still a kind of more of a business world for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I definitely don't buy into the tribalism you see a lot among cryptocurrency projects where, my project's better than yours, your project's awful, et cetera, et cetera. I do really believe that we all are working toward a reasonably common goal, although projects differ pretty greatly in what they aim to achieve. And Dash, for example, is very much focused on being a tool for payments and for payment processing. So yeah, in that regard, I would say some of the projects that are most similar to us in their aim or their intention would be Bitcoin Cash. I think that they're relatively similar. I think that all of the comparisons that we get to privacy coins is an inaccurate description. I was trying to think of the best word to use. Because our privacy functionality is there and is part of what we were originally founded on, although we have since broadened our feature set significantly. We haven't really doubled down on privacy in the same way that some other coins have, like Monero, for instance, or Zcash. So yeah, within the crypto space, I would say Bitcoin Cash is one of the closest competitors. But beyond that, we're also thinking of organizations like Visa and MasterCard as, you know.
It's more of a payment system than actually like this traditional perspective of cryptocurrency and like all this like decentralized kind of currency, this kind of all libertarian goals and all of that, so the maximalism stuff.
Well, the decentralization is a huge part of it, and our community does feel very passionately about our system being decentralized, and we have architected Dash platform, our forthcoming application development platform, in a way that is decentralized in order to protect that security. Because we do really believe that the value of this currency comes from the fact that it's decentralized and that it can't be attacked or modified or tampered with by any sort of third party. Yeah, so we just believe that there's a better currency, and that better currency is one that is decentralized.
How do you think that, like, if you were to describe the way that decentralized payment system works, because we're used to think like Visa or MasterCard, like obviously they're not decentralized and everybody kind of knows more or less how they work, but how exactly the decentralized version of those is supposed to work? Like what is it based upon, and how does it function, and what does it bring extra that is not there in the systems that are not decentralized?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also a very good question. So the way that I try to explain it to people is I try to reduce the concept of the blockchain to its simplest analog. So I'll generally ask people if they know what a ledger is. And, most people have had some contact with the concept of a ledger. And then you combine that with the computer network. So we have this ledger that is keeping track of all of our transactions, and that ledger is being shared among all of these nodes on a computer network. And that makes the data redundant. It makes it easily accessible by people that are trying to connect to this network from other parts of the world. And then, of course, the consensus protocol, which is generally open sourced and something that can be verified by anyone on the internet, ensures that the transactions that are taking place on that computer network and that are being added to that ledger are accurate and valid, and that the user sending funds actually has the funds to send. So going back to your question about how that's a departure from something like Visa or something that you would see in the traditional finance system today, is the traditional finance system has many middlemen, rent-seeking middlemen that will provide some service as your funds go from one destination to another. And then as a result of providing that service, they extract a fee, and that increases the amount that your end result will ultimately cost before it reaches its recipient. So yeah, I would say that one of the biggest values that these decentralized networks provide is that we remove a lot of these middlemen, and that means that transferring funds can be incredibly cheap. For example, we have no need of a clearinghouse. We don't need to validate the transaction because the network acts as its own clearinghouse. So there are many other examples, especially if you get into the specific nuances of what different projects are attempting to do. But that's the general idea. Cheaper money, more easily available money for everyone.
Those are great ideas, and this is actually that's something very close to our like daily lives. It's not something insane that like comes out of nowhere because people are used to this system. It just works a little bit differently, and it's actually cheaper for them. But what do you think it's needed to kind of get more people to use it, to understand this like difference in like, okay, this is a better way. We can do it like cheaper for you guys. So like, why don't you try it? So what's this like adoption kind of point? Like, what do we need to do for more people to kind of on board and understand?
Yeah, so at Dash, we've taken the perspective that user experience is a huge problem. Having to keep track of your addresses and the whole concept of public and private key, which underpins the security of your wallet. It's a hard thing for the average user to wrap their heads around. So consequently, we developed the Dashbay Wallet, which attempts to solve a lot of those problems, primarily through a username. So you would have some sort of human readable username, similar to what you would use on Twitter or some sort of social media site. And you can send money through that username to someone else that also has a username. And that's all well and good. I think that's a foundational step that most cryptocurrency companies will need to go through. I think the real problem will be value propositions across most projects are still kind of ill-defined. Saying to a user, oh, I have usernames, that doesn't really excite the average mainstream user because they're used to that. I mean, we have to build all of these complex systems and applications just to support something that's relatively simple like a username. Because these projects, we want to be able to support usernames in a way that's decentralized, and that's the big difference with something like Venmo, because all of their usernames are just centralized within their existing system.
What will be the biggest challenge for the system to be implemented? It can be like both technical or kind of perspective-wise, or like, I don't know, marketing in some sort. What is the thing that you're facing that's kind of like challenging at the moment?
I would say, I don't know, there's so many challenges. I mean, the industry is still very nascent, and so there is a component to the challenge that is very technical. We're solving problems that have never been solved before. And that's a big reason why on Dash Core Group side, our ability to deliver Dash Platform and Dash Pay, we've had to push back that date several times because we've had to rework our design for the system. We've taken new information and we realized that a previous system wouldn't scale as well. So we've gone back to the drawing board several times. But fortunately now we're on a very good path and we're very close to releasing our first release to testnet, hopefully by the end of the year. But beyond that, I would say that marketing is absolutely a huge challenge. I think a lot of projects aren't really sure who they want to target or what industry they want to disrupt. They might say something relatively vague or generic, like I'm trying to bank the unbanked.
Yeah, this is quite wide.
Yeah, it's a noble goal. I would love to do that as well. But I think that being hyper-targeted and hyper-focused on solving a very specific problem is going to result in more projects being successful.
How do you describe your target audience? Like, who are you working for exactly?
Yeah, within Dash Core Group, we've noticed a lot of traction in Latin America. There have been various articles written about how Venezuela in particular, as a result of their national currency, collapsing or declining in value, how they've turned to cryptocurrency. And one of those popular cryptocurrencies they've turned to is Dash. And we'd like to believe that's because of our instantly confirmed transactions and the speed of which that you can actually transfer Dash among people. you don't have to wait for block confirmation times or anything like that. So consequently, we've focused pretty heavily on the Latin America region. We've looked to integrate Dash as a payments method at point of sale systems for retailers in Latin America, retailers in Venezuela specifically. We're also seeking to understand the inflows of Dash into and out of Latin America. So you have diaspora communities that might be based in other parts of Latin America. For example, Venezuelans living in Brazil or Venezuelans living in Mexico, groups living in the United States, and they typically skew a little bit younger, they're a little more tech savvy, and they're the ones that will be sending money to, usually family members that are still living in Venezuela or other parts of, the continent. So trying to understand that behavior, what's driving it, and then being able to craft product strategies. So that includes some marketing strategies, but also different user experience strategies, and just improving the value that we deliver and making it easy to use our application and to use Dash as the solution to the problem that they're facing. The problem that they're generally facing is my national currency is not doing so well. How can I send money that I'm earning elsewhere to my family members in a way that is as cheap and as fast as possible? So what we're specifically talking about is remittances, and that's been a big focus of what we're doing.
This is interesting because like all these regions that have like troubles with the national currency, they really have shown the trend of turning to cryptocurrency. But sometimes like cryptocurrency usage from the point of like a person who worked for cryptocurrency services for a while, it can be not as convenient. Like right now, it's like it went such a gigantic like leap from what it used to be with like full nodes and all this stuff. But it's just sometimes it's not as easy as something else, because like you're talking about like sending money to their family members who might be living elsewhere, and like if these family members are like a little bit older, probably they need to have some kind of like a more coherent explanation, like what is it, how can I use it, what should I do afterwards, all these things. So do you actually like kind of onboard people, like try to kind of educate them on how to use cryptocurrency, how to use these payment systems, because it seems to be an important step?
Absolutely. So one of the strengths of the Dash network in general is the DAO, the Decentralized Autonomous Organization. So Dash Core Group does a decent amount of business development. Business development is actually one of the biggest things that we do. We have a relatively small marketing team, but fortunately we have all of these other organizations that are applying for funding through our treasury system and through our DAO. And those other organizations are focused on marketing, and especially marketing to our target users in Latin America. And some of those users might be older and they might not be as familiar with technology. And due to the hardships that are experienced in these countries, they typically are more willing to be experimental with the solutions that they use. So they're more forgiving of the barrier to entry that cryptocurrency provides or represents because of its difficulty in using it, the complexity of its technology. So we are hoping that the Dashbay Wallet does make things significantly easier. So that's a big part of it, improve the experience of the wallet. We also are very interested in pursuing fiat on and off ramps. So how you can exchange your bolivars or pesos or dollars to Dash and back and forth. So integrating Dash at point of sale systems is a big part of that. So, okay, you don't need to exchange it to fiat because you can just use that within your local community at a pharmacy or at a grocery store or something like that. But in the off case that you can't, we're definitely looking to partner with different organizations where you might be able to exchange your Dash back for fiat, similar to what you would do at a convenience store or Western Union or something along those lines. So yeah, those are some of the big activities we're pursuing in that regard.
All of those things are currently in like your roadmap or development roadmap, something like this. So it's already kind of being worked on.
Yeah, not all through Dash Core Group. So Dash Core Group specifically is focused on developing the Dashbay Wallet, so user experience. And we also are specifically focused on point of sale integrations and fiat on and off ramps. So we'll pursue integrations in the Dash wallet, for example, where a user will be able to use a credit card or use some other sort of, maybe their bank account information, to buy and sell Dash directly through the wallet. And that is some sort of exchange partnership. That's just a direct integration. And then we also have organizations through the DAO that aren't DCG, but will work with them. And they will be on the ground in various Latin American countries and also around the world as well. We have a decent presence in Nigeria, for example, and some presence in Asia, particularly in Thailand. In those organizations, which are typically called embassies, they'll be on the ground doing marketing campaigns in those countries.
Great, but how do you think it differs? Because the cases where you have, for example, problems with the national currency, and you obviously see like there's something easier and something like more stable that I can use, which is a decentralized payment system. But do you have some kind of like a strategy for the countries, like for example, the EU or the US, like where there's like, I wouldn't say there are troubles with national currencies at the moment, but like there needs to be some kind of way to these people as well.
Yeah, I think it depends on who you ask. I think a lot of people in Europe or the United States would claim that there is a problem with the national currency.
Yeah, that's true too. I actually thought about it afterwards. I was like, wait, like there are way too many dollars being printed at the moment. It's like
exactly. Yeah. So the problem that these users would point out is that our currency isn't backed by anything hard. So using a cryptocurrency like Dash, for example, or like Bitcoin, which has a similar scarcity built into its protocol, that makes money hard again, as opposed to just backed purely by the trust that a citizen has in its government. So that's a different type of problem. It's a different type of problem compared to a user being unable to pay for basic necessities. And typically, thus far, we've been heavily focused on the developing area and trying to solve that hard problem of someone being able to take their earnings and then hold those earnings in something that doesn't fluctuate in value that much, at least compared to the national currency. So we're still developing our marketing strategy for Europe and the United States. But as of now, those are some of our biggest markets currently. Like users are very drawn within those areas, primarily by ideological reasons. Whereas in Latin America, it's more drawn by like a need.
Do you think it's more what will happen afterwards? Will it be more of a need? Like obviously if you can't pay for your groceries, then you kind of look for ways that you can kind of escape the situation, or it will be more ideological reasons that kind of drive this like usage and drive people who were not really thinking about using anything cryptocurrency related or anything decentralized services related to using Dash, for example.
Mm-hmm. I think this essential question represents a big divide within the wider cryptocurrency industry or community. And I have a couple of assumptions. Like I assume that most companies that you speak to, most cryptocurrency companies, will argue that it's based on need. Whereas many cryptocurrency observers, people that might be interested in the industry for various reasons, they would argue that it's more ideological. Personally, me, and within, I think this is the perspective of Dash Core Group as well, we believe that it will be driven by need. Like we need to identify the actual problems that people are having and create very compelling narratives for why cryptocurrency is a better choice. And I legitimately believe that cryptocurrency is a better choice in that regard. And I think we're going to see a lot more exciting use cases appear in the very near future that will make that value proposition more compelling. I'm particularly interested in decentralized finance, for example. Having 8% interest on cryptocurrency that you're holding, I think that's a very compelling value proposition for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, I had lots of great talks about how DeFi could be actually something that kind of draws people in, because that's like, it's something that actually like you can gain profit from, not just like for some reason like, oh, I hate everything, I want decentralized world and like decentralize just everything, like no government or whatever. So it doesn't need to be like exactly backed by any kind of like a belief system, but it's very like, it's very straightforward. It's like, it's just money, it's just fun. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, DeFi
that's
is
my
something
feeling as well.
DeFi is definitely something interesting. Like right now, what do you think is the thing that is necessary for like new users to know? Because we have this like usually question that comes in the end of the interview for you to make like a little advice for all the new users who are just coming to the space. Like, what do they need to check out? What do they need to know? What do they need to be afraid of? Like any relevant information that you find like good and legit from your own personal experience.
Well, obviously they need to know about Dash. That is first and foremost. Yeah, but I would say there definitely are some organizations that make that first point of contact into the cryptocurrency world relatively easy. I think Coinbase does a good job. They usually, when I'm recommending new users to cryptocurrency, I'll point them in the direction of Coinbase, maybe introduce them to the concept of dollar cost averaging. But in terms of what to look out for, I would say some decent advice is to, by default, never trust anything you read on Twitter, especially crypto Twitter. People that are talking about, yeah, I mean, people that are talking about trading advice and things like that and what you should buy, I always take it with a grain of salt. Do as much research as you can into the projects and try to find like underlying reasons as to why they might be successful, or if you're genuinely interested in them. Like for me personally, I genuinely find Tezos interesting. I think the recent rise of Chainlink has strong underlying fundamentals that I think are very interesting. So yeah, for a new user, spending some time to just do the research, let their curiosity guide them. Don't expect to get rich overnight. I think all of those are solid guidelines to follow.
Yeah, this seems pretty solid. Like you guys who'll be watching it should take it seriously, because that's some great advice here. And I believe that would be it actually for our talk for today. I will just make a little like a wrap up. Today we were joined by Dana from Dash. Thank you very much. And it was Swapzone Cryptocurrency interview series.
Yeah, thanks for having me.